Hey guys, Jeremiah with Steps Pressure Washing and more. I want to talk to you a little bit about bare bones startup equipment. So if you are getting ready to launch this spring or you're looking to upgrade into a more professional rig, I would definitely say watch this video and make sure to like and subscribe down below. It really helps the channel out. Okay, so number one, first and foremost, you're going to need a pressure washer. So if you are looking into buying a pressure washer, I would definitely recommend going with a 4 gallon per minute or better. So the reason I say that is because the 4 gallon per minute is going to allow you a higher flow than the smaller units, and you're going to be able to reach much higher. So our 4 gallon per minute we started with, we were able to do 3-story houses from the ground doing the soft wash with downstreaming. That being said, we could be doing a lot better with an 8 gallon per minute machine, but that has extra costs to it as well. I know the 4 gallon per minute machines are more economical, but they are a lot slower than the 8 gallon per minute machine, so eventually we will be upgrading to an 8 gallon per minute machine. But there's also all of our equipment that we bought for a 4 gallon per minute machine would have to get changed out to the 8 gallon per minute machine. And so right now it's just not something we're looking to do a capital investment in. So I highly recommend when you start your business, decide what you're ready to go into and what you are really aiming to do with this pressure washing business. So if you are looking to do, 5 or 6 houses a day, you're probably not going to get there with a 4 gallon per minute machine. An 8 gallon per minute machine, you might be able to do that. You also have to get that many customers to sign up for your business, but that's for a different video. Okay, so when you've got your 4 gallon per minute machine, there are a few things that I would recommend you have on that 4 gallon per minute machine, or better, if you have an 8 gallon per minute or 5.5, awesome. I highly recommend you go as big as you can afford to go and your equipment can handle. But on whatever machine you have, 4 gallon per minute or higher, you want an external unloader. That way when your unloader goes out, you can swap it for a new one without having to swap your pump. You need an external downstream injector. Again, that's going to fail. So you can swap it out. You can repair it at home, but you don't want to be repairing it on the job site. Have an extra one in the truck. It's external. You can just pop it on and off with a quick connect. Then you have the need for a belt-driven or gear-driven pump. And the reason I say that is because when we got into the business, I didn't know a direct drive pump cannot pull water from a buffer tank. It sometimes can, it sometimes can't. We're running a gravity-fed buffer tank, so we're putting the water level way higher up than the pressure washer so that when it runs through the line, it has enough pressure from that gravity to feed the pump. And the only problem with that is we can't drive around with a full tank. Even though it's only a 50 gallon tank, it's really top heavy. So we have to drain our tank every time we leave somewhere, and we can't carry a little extra water. So I highly recommend getting that 4 gallon per minute direct drive, or 4 gallon per minute gear drive or belt driven, so that you can add that buffer tank on and it be nice and smooth and easy to roll. Okay, so now you've got your 4 gallon per minute or better machine, you're going to need a hose. I would definitely recommend starting with 150 feet of pressure hose, whether you're doing that in 3 50-foot segments or getting straight up a 150-foot roll that's just one straight line. I'll add with that, you're going to want hose reels. That's not something we started out with. So when we were practicing on our friends' and family's homes, and my home as well, we were going around and I was rolling up the hose in the middle of the yards, and I was looking like an idiot, but I was too cheap to spend a little extra money on the pressure reels. And I went out and I did my very first real job for a customer, and I rolled everything up by hand and tied it onto the trailer, and I said, when I get home tonight, I am buying hose reels. And man, was that a great investment, because it goes so fast. When you're rolling up or setting up, you look extremely professional compared to unwinding by hand. And it just, honestly, I was spending almost as much time messing with hoses as I was washing the house. So I definitely recommend, for speed and professional appearance, having hose reels from day one if you can do it. So 150 feet of hose and hose reels. Currently I'm running 200 feet of hose. My pressure washer can handle it, my downstream injector can handle it, so I'm running with it every day. You don't really want much less than 150 because you're not going to be able to get around a house, and you're going to end up having to move the pressure washer as you go with too little on your line. So definitely recommend getting 150 feet of hose, 200 if your machine can handle it. Number 3, you're going to want a downstream injector, and that right there is basically where all the magic happens on soft washing houses using a pressure washer. 100% the best investment you can make if you're trying to do this professionally or even as a homeowner trying to get equipment to wash your own house is the downstream injector. I know all of the experts in the industry are going to tell you that you no longer really want to do high pressure on any home surface. So definitely make sure you've got the downstream injector from day one. That way you're washing the houses as safely as possible. Now there are, of course, safety measures that must be taken as well when using sodium hypochlorite because it is a corrosive material and it kills plants. It's an irritant, so if you get it on you, it can actually do some good amount of damage. Ask me how I know, but it definitely is something that I would, if you are going out, I started day one using sodium hypochlorite and I don't regret it even for a minute. I was doing high pressure on my house when I was doing it as just a homeowner, and it took me all day to wash my house. And I got absolutely filthy and absolutely exhausted fighting that high pressure all day long. And just switching over to the downstream injector before we started the business, it was just phenomenal. You can wash with much less fatigue and much less time, and time is money. So if you can only do one house per day, or if you can do 3 or 4 houses a day, it makes a huge difference. As well, if you're not fighting high pressure all day, it's a lot easier on your body. So definitely get yourself a downstream injector before you get started. Alright, so now you have your 4 gallon per minute pressure washer, you have 150 feet of hose with hose reels, you have your downstream injector. You're going to need a way to haul it, which brings us to number 4. So you are going to need a way to haul this that is not just in the back of your car, and preferably not just in the back of your pickup truck. So if you do have a pickup truck, you are way ahead of where I was when I started back in 2020. We didn't actually add a pickup truck into, I think, early 2023. And we were hauling it around with an SUV on a trailer. Now, the trailer, I love the trailer because I can disconnect the trailer and leave all of my equipment somewhere. So I'm still able to use my pickup truck for anything else I need because I actually own the pickup truck, not the business. So it's still my daily driver. And if you have a pickup truck, I think you're going to do pretty well having a trailer because you're able to kind of disconnect having your vehicle being the main source of your equipment hauler, as well your vehicle being a U-hauler going around doing your stuff. I also hate the trailer because, man, it is inconvenient sometimes. Trying to get in and out of some driveways or houses, it is an absolute headache, especially if you're like me and you don't have any idea how to back a trailer in when you first get started, and so it takes you 15 attempts to get into a customer's driveway. If you just had a pickup truck, it is, I'm sure, much easier just to get into someone's driveway and get out and move on. So if you have the ability to and the capital, having a separate pickup truck with everything loaded onto it would probably be ideal. But for the time being, I'm still loving my trailer because I can have that work-life balance where everything really just goes back onto the trailer when I'm done, and I can put it away and use my truck to go on about my daily life. Number 5. So, okay, we're almost done with this list. It is a buffer tank. This is something that I wish I added when I first got started because it allows you to wash houses that don't have a high enough flow rate out of their spigot to go and feed your pressure washer. I have had to walk away from several jobs. As well, I put my pressure washer in danger going to some houses where there's not enough water pressure to feed it, and running that pump hot is really dangerous because most of these pumps are water cooled, so you have to constantly have enough water running through them. Another thing you are going to get with a buffer tank is you're able to run a bypass line. So with that bypass line, you're going to be able to let off the trigger for pretty much as long as you want. You can let that water just recirculate into your buffer tank and talk to the customer, or while you're setting everything up, you can go ahead and just crank your machine up and have it running, and then when you get started, you just walk over to where you left your lance and get started right away. What I did my first few years is I would pull my hose out and then carry my lance back to the trailer with the hose on it, hold down the trigger on the lance, allowing water to flow through, then pull the cord, and by holding the trigger on the lance, I allowed that water pressure to be released so that the engine could cycle fully and start up. Then I'd have to hold the trigger down on the lance, letting water run through as I'm walking through people's yards, and then once I get to where I want to start, I can switch over to my soaper nozzle and get everything rocking and rolling. So I think that the professionalism aspect as well suffered, and I recommend if you can start with a buffer tank, start with a buffer tank. And it has made my life significantly easier. It has made every wash that I have had since I added the buffer tank go much smoother, with less stress, and making me look a lot more professional while I'm actually on the job and doing it. So make sure to grab that buffer tank before you get started. And that's another reason why that belt drive or gear drive is great to start out with. That way you can go ahead and add your buffer tank right away. Number 6. Okay, so this one is something that a lot of folks probably don't do right away, and that is get your safety equipment. And this is something that's kind of like, I don't want to say near and dear to my heart, but man, I harp on it as much as I can. Having safety glasses and sunglasses that are impact resistant, because if you have SH spraying into your eyes all day, every day, or you get down to the bottom of a fence and you just tap that dirt a little bit with the high pressure and it splatters right back up into your face, you need safety glasses in order to keep going. And you can definitely do a lot of damage to your eyes doing this. So have those safety glasses ready to go day one before you ever fire up a machine. Having gloves on has made a huge difference, not only in chemical burns on my hands from getting too much SH on it, especially the full concentrate 15 to 12.5 that we normally get. And it also, my wife has been super happy with the fact that my hands don't smell like bleach every day when I get home. So I can switch out nozzles and I can make my mix tank. And if I get a little bit of bleach on my gloves, it's no problem. I go through gloves all day long. But having a good pair of gloves goes a long way. Having a respirator for when you're doing the 3% and higher concentrations on post-treatment or doing roofs, having that respirator is going to go a long way too, because I'll tell you, I have gotten out on some hot summer days, put out some 3%, and you're almost suffocating doing finishing touches out there on the driveways, because it is absolutely unbearable to stand on a driveway while that 3% evaporates on a hot summer day. So have a respirator on standby. I think the ones I have the pink filters on them so that it does organics, and it also does certain chemicals like sodium hypochlorite. So that's the one that I would prefer and I would recommend doing. But of course, do your research as well. Make sure you're getting the right respirator for the chemicals you're using, and make sure that it's a good tight fit for you. I know some people have ones that cover their whole face because the fumes of the SH will get into their eyes and it burns there as well. So definitely make sure you've got that safety equipment ready to rock and roll. A fire extinguisher in the truck just in case something happens and you need to put out a fire. Because we are dealing with, outdoor electric boxes. We're dealing with, gasoline-powered engines. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, so having the ability to extinguish a fire before the fire happens is definitely important. So make sure you got that safety equipment ready to go. Number 7, we're almost done, is with the downstream injector, you have to have the correct nozzles for it. So I would say get yourself a XROD or better. And the reason why I say or better is because I started out with a XROD and it works. It definitely does. I did a 4 nozzle XROD that had 2 low pressure nozzles and 2 high pressure nozzles, so I could do first floor and second floor. And then I switched over to the 2 nozzle XROD, which just had the soaker tips, the low pressure nozzles, and then I had my XJET that I used for a rinsing tool for, well, I still actually do, for like 4 years now. And I absolutely love that XJET because you can do chemical applications with it. You can do high pressure. You can do first floor, second floor, fan tip. It does all sorts of cool stuff, and I use that thing every day. And now I'm actually using a combo of a M5 Downstream, which is made by XJET, and then the XJET, which has the low pressure for the M5 Downstream and the high pressure on the regular XJET. So all I have to do is switch between the 2 nozzles to turn that downstream injector on and off. And I can switch between soap and high pressure. And again, with that, you don't have to necessarily use a high-low pressure on that. You can do a what's called a bypass, and that's a little bit more expensive. And you can actually do a bypass where it's automatic, where it's like a remote. So you can just turn your water on and off, and you never have to switch tips. You can just stay on like your soaker tip, and you can apply a high volume at low pressure, and then when you're ready to switch over to rinsing, all you have to do is push the button, bleed the line, and then you got a high volume, low pressure rinse. So that is also an option. It is probably not something I would call bare bones because it is a little pricey just for the ability to switch between the two. And I don't know, I really like my setup where I do the high pressure nozzle and the low pressure nozzle, just making sure that I'm standing back far enough when I'm using that high pressure, just to make sure I'm not damaging anything and I'm able to get the amount of volume I want onto the house. So that's all I've got for like my 7 things you should have to start up bare bones. In my opinion, that's what I would, if I could go back and I could do it all over again, that's what I would start with. Now, I know that what I just said probably costs a lot more money than some of you have for your entire startup budget, but I would definitely recommend thinking about having the right equipment before you launch. That way you make sure that you're doing it right from the start. So I hope this was informative and hopefully educational for some. If it was, just please, give us a like and subscribe. And if you want me to do a video on anything else, I'd be happy to share some knowledge with you guys. Just leave that in the comments down below. All right, that's all I got. Y'all be safe out there.